So what I'm going to talk about today is really a glimpse into the future. So I am the ghosts of Christmas yet to come. And being a Jew, it's always fun to put up slides like this. But the reality is, I was listening to Simon, and that's what everyone does. It's this fear-mongering, but it doesn't have to be this way. And I am a disruptor. I've taken market research as an industry to disrupt. And I think the reason I want to disrupt it is because I think there's a huge opportunity for research if they realize what their role is. Imagine a world without research. How crazy that would be. How many poor business decisions would be made. How much spending would be wasted. So if you accept that market research is needed in all this change, what is your role? And I think it's really just that change of perspective that has to happen. And living in a digital world, I've been watching this gathering of data happen. All this data, back in the late 90s when we would say that we can measure a banner campaign up to the minute, ad agencies hated it because, first of all, you don't measure TV. And secondly, well, why would you ever want to know what the results are right when it's happening? We can tell them next quarter. It's all changed. And we've entered, now that everybody is a digital customer, technology is in everybody's life. I think with all this data that it's collecting, we've really entered the age of intelligence. But I walk into our clients, particularly on our Delvinia side, and they have a report, a great Omniture, great technology in tracking what's going on with their websites. And I'll see a report gathering dust from 2 months ago. I said, well, how's your site doing? Oh, I haven't had time to look at this. And then, we talk about different ways that you can use data. And then they say, I can't even look at the data I have now. So how am I going to do anything with it? But there's a solution. The rise of dashboards. So, there's a lot of really cool technologies that have been coming up. I was trying to figure out how do you merge all this social data with ad hoc research data, with web traffic data, with financial data. And am I going to have to build a technology to do this? Because I don't want to be in the technology business. Because if you're in the technology business, as our next speakers will know, you are doing versioning. You have a whole team to support technology. That's not my gig. I like to use technology. And where I've seen, when I was looking for this and deciding what I wanted to do, I started seeing these really cool companies that were already taking that step. But what they were doing is, they built the best mousetrap. This is the best thing since sliced bread. Now, we can gather all your data and present it to you in a way that will change the way your company will run. But you have to fit in the way our technology works. So here's how it is, and here's how the technology will be presented to you, because that's the way we built our tables and interfaces. And so you sort of sit there going, that's really cool. But how's that really going to help me get past this issue of way too much data and I can't interpret the data? Well, my roots, like I said, I've been in the industry for 20 years. My company, Delvinia, we're celebrating our 15th anniversary this year, and it's quite a feat because I think in this world we went out of business a couple times, very close to the edge, and we've maintained our passion and kept it going. But what really has been rooted in where my company has come from is this user-centric point of view. Whatever you do, look at it through the eyes of the user. So all of our consulting in the digital strategy helps our clients look at their digital activities and how their customers are using digital technologies and how their customers who use digital technologies interact with their businesses. And then once you do that, there's lots of data to help you either validate or find ways to figure out where the next thing is. And the last part of what we do is we tell stories. The visualization of data today, you have to find a way to get through all this clutter and noise and things making your head spin. How do you simplify it down so that someone can actually absorb it? So those of you who have heard my preaching about Canada being the most amazing place to do innovation, I am a passionate innovator. I get a lot of government funding to do my own R&D. And it's because I run an entrepreneurial firm. And when I wanted to look at this thing of dashboards, I said, okay, there's all these dashboard companies. And how do you use these dashboard companies to take on a problem? And then we talked to a couple clients and we said, hey, do you want to participate and build a dashboard? Oh, I don't have time. We got all these other priorities. And when I talked to them, they really looked at the dashboard of going, oh, we already have a dashboard. I'm going, what's your dashboard? And we talk about it. But it's where I step back and I develop the hypothesis that if we're going to look at dashboards from a user-centric point of view, the user in this case is the decision maker, an executive, a CEO. The question I asked my staff was, imagine you asked a CEO to say, if you walked into your office every day and you turn on your computer and you were able to see something that helped you make better decisions, not to answer all your questions, but just helped you make a better decision with all this data, do you know what that would look like? And we asked a few of our clients and they actually didn't. And we said, well, that's a little scary. How are you making decisions today? Well, our researchers get us a research study like 3 months from now. We're throwing up questions in Facebook and we're getting responses. And we're making decisions on how to spend because everything is happening so quickly and they're overwhelmed. So I said, what a cool hypothesis, but how are we going to get someone to invest in this? How are we going to get someone to help us run this project, to be a part of this project? Well, guess what? There's nobody. We couldn't get anybody. We couldn't get anyone who wanted to put up any money. But thankfully, in Canada, I get a lot, like I said, I get a lot of government funding. We were able to get, from this one group, the National Research Council, funding to get my team to focus on it. We knew that developing the algorithms and synthesizing data, it was well beyond a skill set that we had in our firm. So I happened to have one of these weird discussions with Ryerson University. And I was speaking to a professor in electrical engineering who happens to be in the area of signal processing. So he takes big radio signals and analyzes it and finds trends. But his wife happens to be a market researcher. So when I started telling him about this user-centric approach to dashboards, he said, I can help you. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I totally get what you're trying to do. Well, guess what? There's funding from the government to go to the university to get one of his graduate students to work on stuff. So with the help of Ryerson, I basically had a whole whack of government funding to help me deal with what I couldn't get the client to help us do. This is available to everybody. I don't say this because I have some corner of the market, but I keep on telling everybody because you should be all going to the government, finding these sources and working with the universities to help you get past these challenges when there aren't any clients, because it's too far ahead of the curve. So we went down our place and we talked to a couple clients and we talked to the Weather Network. And the Weather Network, we had just finished some work on doing some customer journey mapping. Now, our interpretation of customer journey mapping is about helping them understand the customer journey as how does the Weather Network fit into a customer's life, and how do they use technology to interact with that. And you map that. You gain insights, you track it, you do research, and you map that journey. But guess what? There's data being collected every bit of part of the way. And what they really care about is, well, what's my brand health through this process? So, hey, didn't cost them any money. Bring your data to bear, and we wanted to work together. So we started our research project together. Our approach is quite simple, and this is the same approach we use for all our Delvinia consulting clients, is to first, the user requirements planning. Very simple. Sit down with your client, figure out what they want. What a pain in the ass. Sitting there, it was such an iterative process because they didn't know what they wanted. They didn't really understand what a dashboard could do. They didn't understand that it wasn't about just presenting data. It was about what would help them make better decisions. Look at it through their own eyes to help them make better decisions. It took a while to go through that process. I thought they would just tell us everything, but it was an iterative process. The next pain, data gathering. Oh, we have all this data. We have web data. We have social data. We've got all the stuff we can give you. Great. Where is it? Oh, well, we don't know where it is. Oh, we don't really have it. And we have this tool that collects this data, but we're not really sure what to do with this data. And it was this back and forth, going back and forth, and saying, okay, do you have this data? And here was the other crazy thing. They wanted to track their apps because they had launched a really cool app. Well, when we're working with our analysts, you need about 3 years of data to be able to analyze to start seeing trends. The app had only been out a year. So what are you going to do? So you're working with all these unknowns. But once we got through that and we worked in an iterative process with Ryerson, with Weather Network to try to both gather data and synthesize it to basically take their brand health indicator and use data that we were able to do to develop it, we can move to the dashboard design. And this is where our approach really differs. Now we didn't care about the data anymore. Our user experience folks now had to visualize and create a user experience for an executive to look at something that was relevant to them. That was probably the easiest part of the whole process, because then we had to integrate that onto a platform. And we used Tableau for this. And Tableau was a very powerful tool. But most technology companies don't really want you to figure out this R&D without paying them for the licensing of it. So we had to kind of go through a little bit of a process. We signed up for a little test on one computer. And then when we ran out of our 30 days on that, we signed up on another computer. And after about 4 times of breaking those rules, they finally realized, okay, we'll give you a beta license. But they really wanted to charge us $10,000 for a license and a number of user fees before we even knew if this thing was going to work. This is why I say you have to have control of what you want to do. And from the prototype, we've actually just finished the prototype. There's a lot of really interesting data gaps in it because of what we found. But what we're doing now is we're turning it on for real. So the process of developing this stuff, now we're going to turn it on for real and try to work with the Weather Network to say, okay, we actually have the algorithms. We can actually measure your brand health with all these near real-time data points. Are you ready to turn it on? And will people use it? So here's what we kind of designed. It's first generation. And what I loved about this was the simplicity. I had to kind of blur out the numbers, even though they aren't really accurate numbers. Just the fact they were numbers, I had to respect Weather Network. But what this was really, the score was there to help an executive look at how their brand health was on a monthly basis. And they like to look at it overall. They wanted to look at it from channels, from the web, from their apps, from TV. But what was really cool about this, you can dig down. So if something bothered them, we wanted to make it so that within 3 clicks, an executive would know who to talk to get an answer. Because they're not going to want to look at this data and figure anything out. They just want to know, who do I talk to make this happen? And in 3 clicks, they can figure out and narrow down what's the reason why it's up, why it's down, and who do they have to talk to about it. The other thing that we did was about responsive design. So one of the great practices now with multiple interfaces that people and devices that people are looking at stuff, how do you design one interface that could be viewed on multiple devices? And that's responsive design. And that's, as part of R&D, we are always looking at ways that we can do things and push the way that we can, platforms that we can work on this. What was really interesting is a lot of the data points on this, we don't know, they haven't even emerged yet. So we had to try, how do you be flexible so that when you're designing it and you have an interface that you could add to it? So basically, to wrap up my little case study, it was a wonderful experience for my staff to go through the dashboard. Not so much, but to go through the process of working with a client to build a dashboard. To go through the process, to watch a client understand what it meant. If we gave you information that would help you make better decisions, what would you do with it? And I took 5 things away that, as we move forward to offering this to other clients, that really, really were really important to me, was really clearly define the user audience. It's, in many cases, you will be dealing with a data person or a researcher within an organization who says they know what they want this dashboard to look like. They probably don't. You need to engage the senior people, the people who are going to be using it to be part of this process. They have to be engaged. They will start kicking and fighting until they realize, wow, this may actually help me. Gather and analyze existing data and reporting tools, because you will find a lot of gaps. Give yourself lots of time to do this stuff. Ensure that the user interface is a collaborative process. So that's really about designing something, letting someone try it out, coming back. It's not just allowing you to build something and say, oh, this does it, I think this looks great. It's like everything. User experience design is an iterative process. And please don't let technology lead. The technology providers will tell you all that their technology can do. But if you're looking at it from a user point of view, it may not. And it's up to them to help you get past how their technology will fit into your interface and provide you what you need. That's probably the most important thing that the research community needs to realize. Don't accept the limitations of technology. You have to acknowledge them, but it's for the technology providers to understand that they need to adapt to the user experiences that you're going to create. And the final thing is, this is just the beginning. So while we've developed this one brand health indicator, there's lots of opportunities to build this for other. There's so much data, even the same data, there's different algorithms. And as new things come on, as new sources of data come on, it creates a huge opportunity for what I consider the research community to kind of step up and guide their clients to help them say, what do you want to see? How can I help you make better decisions and play a role like that? So this is our little R&D piece. We do this all the time. I think it's really important if any research firm or any, particularly in Canada, wants to stay at the front of the curve, you have to adopt an R&D mentality. There's lots of sources of support to help you get there. And thank you.